Hello everybody. This time I'm going to take you on a trip I took while I've actually been living here in Erbil. I've been trying to take advantage of my location and taking some trips to some places that would have been very inaccessible to me had I not been living in the Middle East. So last year in May, I went to Egypt for the first time over the Eid holiday. The Eid holiday is a little religious holiday. A lot of people have time off work, which made for some interesting parts, but we'll get to that in a little bit on how this trip was really good in some ways and a little bit overwhelming in others. I had 1 week to spend in Egypt from my time off work. And since it was my first time there, I really wanted to try and squeeze in a lot of interesting stuff. The country is full of lots of things to do, lots of diverse and different things. It's not just ancient structures and ruins. So stay to the end of this video. There's a hint here. One of my favorite spots that I went to is actually not an ancient archaeological site at all, something very different. Stay tuned. So of course, when in Egypt, you must see some pyramids, right? So that's what I'm going to show you first. My friends and I hired a driver for the day from the staff at the hostel I was staying at. Probably your best bet, especially if you're with multiple people. If I had more time, probably I would have taken public transit because these sites are pretty accessible. But when I was trying to fit everything all in basically one day, and I could share the cost with some friends, it actually was fairly cheap. I think it was $30, and between the three of us, that's really nothing. To take us around everywhere was pretty inexpensive and worth saving the time. Basically, we organized this up. I will leave a link to the hostel I stayed at in case you want that. So first stop on the tour for pyramids was the site at Dashur. And here we have the Red Pyramid, which the king of Senefru was buried. This is actually the only pyramid I went into on my first trip to Egypt. I've been now 2 times. And to be honest with you, the coolest thing about going into a pyramid is the act of going down the ladder or the steps. And it's not actually what you see inside. I mean, what you see inside is interesting, right? It's pretty amazing to be inside this massive pyramid. But in terms of intricate paintings or carvings on the wall, you don't really see that in the pyramids. Basically, whatever was there that was really extravagant, things that were buried with the pharaohs and the kings, was actually all excavated and taken out when they first discovered them. So in terms of things inside, not much, but the adventure feeling of it, super cool. So I would suggest maybe do 1 or 2. You don't have to go inside each one you visit. I think that'd be a little bit much. And extra cost where you're not really seeing anything different, if you know what I mean. But anyway, still amazing and an experience that I can suggest. The most interesting site, in my opinion, at Dashur is the Bent Pyramid. So here you can also enter. We didn't enter this one. This one is unique to the other pyramids because the engineers who made it actually made a big boo-boo halfway through, and they made it too sloped and then had to backtrack and just change the angle halfway through so that it wouldn't collapse. Kind of interesting if you like that sort of stuff. Moving on from Dashur, we actually went to Saqqara. Now this complex is actually huge. The first thing you see when you walk through is the massive temple. It's full of large pillars and columns, and though it's not the most jaw-dropping and amazing temple in Egypt, the whole complex is very cool. So once you exit this temple area, you'll find some locals trying to sell you trinkets. And then you have the view of the famous step pyramid. This one is significant because it was the first mortuary structure to be higher than a single mastaba, which you can see here. This mastaba is basically a single level tomb. And around Saqqara, there are actually many of these tombs, some of which you can enter, but we were on a bit of a time crunch again. I knew I would probably be stuck at Giza for a long time, so kind of just went around to this one fairly quickly. Now, moving on to the most popular pyramid complex, and literally within the city of Cairo, we have Giza. I did mention at the beginning, when I visited, it was during Eid holiday. Now, all I'm going to tell you is that I've been to many packed places, like packed temples in India, for example, where you literally are more than shoulder to shoulder, neck to neck with people, right? But this, I have not seen people squish in my entire life. It was insane. And I don't have a picture. I'm very sorry. But the reason why I don't have a picture or any video of this moment is because I was terrified that I would lose my phone, my camera, my anything. So I was just very nervous and tucked in everything. But I'll tell you what happened. So as me and my friends are coming up to this gate, we're like, oh my God, there were literally like hundreds of people swarming at the ticket booth, literally arms reaching through the bars to get tickets from the cashiers on the inside. So we looked at it and we're like, what the heck are we gonna do? Well, we sort of inched up to the end and this random Egyptian guy came up to us. He's like, you guys want tickets? And we said, well, yeah. And he looked at us like, well, if you give me the money, I'll reach in there and get it. And I looked at my friends and I was like, you know what? If we don't take this chance, maybe we won't get in. So forget it. Let's try it. Handed the guy the money and he crawled literally hands, feet over a whole group smash of people, reached his arm through the top of the ticket window. I don't even know how. Somehow he got tickets, found his way down, gave it to us. Insane. I don't know. Very lucky, I guess. I think he probably paid a local person's price and somehow got us the foreign tickets. I'm not sure. But no problem with me. Anyways, from there, we actually got through security very easily because the security could see that there were some foreigners trying to get through. And so they were sort of pushing away all the local people to let us through first, which was nice because, of course, these people live here and they can go there any time, kind of, whereas we were just here for one day. So from the Sphinx Gate, of course, is close proximity to the Sphinx of Giza. As you can see here, pretty packed with people. The videos I have don't even actually quite encompass how packed it was. It was just so loud, so busy, and almost every little site you went to here, it was very overwhelming. So from the Sphinx, we actually walked up all the way to the pyramids. A lot of people will say it's too far to walk, it's kind of strenuous, but it's not that bad. So you can walk up to the main sort of pyramid area where you have the Pyramid of Khafre, and that's where we're passing by here. You can actually get around all the way to where we're going by foot, like me and my friends did. Or you can hire a camel, a car, a horse, etc. A lot of people passing by will really push it on you and tell you that it's impossible to walk to any of the viewpoints. That's not true. This main viewpoint where there actually was a restaurant, I don't know if it's open at the moment, but it's sort of where you can see all the pyramids. Walking by foot, it's a bit uncomfortable if it's super hot. It was fairly hot when we were there, like I think it was over 40 degrees. But personally, I would rather scorch myself in the heat and the sun than trying to haggle with one of these guys, but that's personal preference, so up to you. For me, I was happy to walk it because it was actually quiet too, less people standing around, so it was a bit of a break. From the roundabout where the Great Pyramid is, all the way to the viewpoint is about 40 minutes, okay? I walk pretty fast, so I think it was shorter than that, but let's say roughly on maps it tells you 40 minutes, so that's what I'm gonna go with. But you will have here tons of people taking their little selfies, the picture where they put their finger on the pyramid. You can see all the pyramids together. I managed to get some photos without a gazillion people around, which seems like quite an accomplishment. And from this point, you will actually have lots of people offering you camel rides, and they will offer you the full panoramic viewpoint where you can see all pyramids in a line. Now, I didn't do this myself, but I would definitely warn you that if it's a hazy day, be hesitant to go, because if you did it and it was too hazy, then you might not be able to see all of the 9 pyramids in a line anyways, because the last few will be too far. If you're gonna go with that option, which would be very nice, make sure it's a nice clear day. Otherwise, it might not be worth the long sort of ride on a camel and the money. So just be cautious of that. So from the viewpoint, we walked down to the side of Khafre's pyramid and then left through the Sphinx Gate again. So we just went down the same way we came. I want to mention is another option to enter, which is through the gate closest to the Marriott Hotel. On my second visit to Cairo, this is actually the way I took. And this time I arrived way before opening time. It was around 7:30 a.m. So actually before they opened at 8. And it was a few days after Christmas. And it was amazing. It was actually such a good decision. I had already been there before, but I was so glad I did it because it was such a different experience this time. And because it wasn't busy at the gate, I was able to buy the entrance ticket to go into Hafre's pyramid on the inside, whereas last time I couldn't because I was just relying on some Egyptian guy to buy me the entrance. If you want to go inside the pyramids, any of them in the complex, you have to buy that ticket in the entrance gate to the whole Giza complex, not by the pyramid itself. The bonus of me going into Hafre's on that day was that I had it to myself, whereas when I went the time before in Dashur, it was a bit busier. Again, a little bit of a bonus doing something on not Muslim holiday and not in the middle of the day, much earlier. Another place to visit in Cairo that I want to mention is the Citadel of Saladin. This is a medieval Islamic era fort, and the main site that most people go to see is the Mosque of Muhammad Ali. Outside of the mosque is a beautiful view of Cairo. You can literally see what looks endless into the skyline, super nice. And inside the mosque is also very beautiful. It's known as the Alabaster Mosque, which obviously relates to everything being in white marble. Inside, it's decorated with very intricate wood carvings and hanging lights. Super, super pretty. I went early in the morning as well, so it was a bit quiet, which was nice. So I can definitely suggest this one as a cool site to see if you have time in Cairo to spend going to other sites and not just the pyramids. The other mosque inside the Citadel is the Al-Nasir Muhammad Mosque. This one was built in 1318. Apparently, sultans at that time would actually do their Friday prayers in this one. So it's a lot older than the Alabaster Mosque, which was finished in 1848. So there's the time difference. Of course, this one looks much older, so that's why. Other sites in the Citadel that you can visit are the Police Museum and the Egyptian Military Museum. I didn't go into them myself, but if you have time to spare and that's something that interests you, there's an option there. So give it a go and let me know what you think. Some other interesting sites in Cairo can be found in the Coptic area. I actually really like this spot. The first church I'm going to show you is the Orthodox Church of St. George. There's a small area that you can go inside and see the paintings up top. And there's also a walkway underneath where they have some older paintings as well. Super interesting down there. Below that, there's sort of an alleyway that leads you to the other sites in the Coptic area. And this is basically kind of like a big open library. And there were also shops to buy souvenirs and postcards, that kind of thing, not just books. Next, I'm taking you into the St. Barbara Church. And this is where the Holy Family is believed to have stayed and rested on their way into Egypt. And so for any Christians that are coming through the area, this is actually a very significant site to go and see. Specifically in this site, there is the cave that is located in the bottom of the church. Tourists are actually allowed to enter there, which I obviously did myself. And so again, this is very significant for those who are religious Christians to come and stay in that church. There are several other churches that you can visit around through these alleyways. And the other most famous church is the Hanging Church. This one is unique and called the Hanging Church for the roof that's shaped like Noah's Ark in the wood. But outside of the church is also very beautiful as well. There's a very nice little narrow garden, and on the sides of the walls of the garden are very colorful mosaics, and I really like looking at those as well. So now I want to share you just a last little bit of evidence of what it was like to be in Cairo over Eid and during the holiday when all the locals are out and about. Now, given I can't compare it to what it was like on a normal day, but for me, this felt pretty packed and everyone's kind of, hanging out and picnicking on the sides of the highway and that's Cairo. It's busy, it's a bit crazy, but there's things to love about it. From Cairo, I'm gonna take you far south, actually, to Luxor. To get to Luxor, I took an overnight bus. I used Go Bus. I can leave you a link below. It's pretty affordable and the buses are pretty comfortable from what I experienced. But there are options of flights as well. People who are in a bit more of a time crunch will actually take a flight from Cairo to Luxor if they want. Luxor's West Bank is home to many significant archaeological sites. So from Luxor, from the bus, you are on the East Bank. So from there, you got to take the ferry over to the other side. The first spot on the West Bank I'm going to take you to is the Valley of the Kings, super famous. Tucked into the dry desert mountains are countless tombs. First one that we went into is the tomb of Tauser. A lot of the tombs are similar in the sort of layout and the types of drawings that you'll see, but they do differ in terms of how well they have been preserved. Essentially, all of the tombs open up to a room where the sarcophagus would be or still is, depending on which tomb you're in. Then there are also those little side chambers where they would have their riches stored, which obviously have been taken out, and all of these things have been mostly placed into museums. Another tomb we went into is Meremta's tomb. Another thing I want to mention is that these tombs were actually included in the entrance ticket. So when you buy the entrance to the Valley of the Kings, they'll give you access to, I believe, 3. The most famous tombs, like Tutankhamun, for example, will cost you a lot extra. So it's up to you if you want to pay for that extra. Again, I will say that I think the layout, a lot of them are the same. They do differ in terms of how they're preserved. I'm gonna get back to this point when I mention Valley of the Queens, because there's something a bit more significant there to mention. Next, from the Valley of the Kings, I'm gonna take you to Queen Hatshepsut's temple, who reigned there as a pharaoh for apparently 20 to 25 years, so pretty significant. The temple has 3 large terraces where you'll find nice carvings on the walls, massive sculptures and columns. Pretty awesome place. I actually think this temple is pretty cool because you can actually see it from the other side. Depending on where you are, you can sort of pinpoint it. Really neat. So something to check out while you're on the East Bank as well. Another thing you'll come across are several locals, and this happens a lot, not just here at this temple. Locals trying to take advantage of tourists like this guy. One in particular, I swear, literally took my camera out of my hands, insisted that he would take pictures beyond the railed off area, and then even took pictures of me and my friends. He took a crappy picture of the room that looks all slanted and off-centered. I didn't edit it, I'm just leaving you to show you how crap it is. And then after I finally got my camera back, I was like, excuse me, I need that back. He just held out his hand for money. This could have ended badly for me. I don't always suggest being so forward and a little bit, maybe I was a bit angry. I was angry. I scolded him for taking my camera without asking and refused to give him any money. And luckily it just ended there. Now, did he understand everything I said? Maybe not, but I'm sure he could understand that I was pissed off. Back to the beautiful valley here. So like I mentioned before, there are tons of sites around the West Bank. And according to our driver who was taking us around this day, there are actually tombs scattered about the entire side of the Nile River. And he said researchers, depending on the season, are pretty much constantly excavating to find new ones, which is really cool. Our next stop is the Temple of Ramses III, or Medinat Habu, which is usually referred to that. And this is another very impressive temple. Glad we stopped here. A lot of the reliefs here are very well preserved. A lot of them depict scenes of war and conquest, which apparently Ramses was famous for. And we even have a lot of original paint left. So you can see usually it's near the tops of the ceilings that ends up being the most preserved because I guess it's less exposed than the other sides, but pretty amazing once you get to those points and have a little bit of a look. Last stop on the West Bank of Luxor, we're gonna take you to this tomb that we are able to enter, which is our entrance ticket at the Valley of the Queens. The most famous tomb in the Valley of the Queens is Nefertari's tomb. Apparently it is the most well preserved. They charge, I think it's about $90 to get inside. I could correct myself and leave some information below on that. Super expensive, and it's on top of the entrance ticket that you pay. So me and my friends were like, we don't know much about history. It doesn't mean that much to me. I'm more just going to see the sites. So we just went into the ones that were included. And to me, they were still very impressive. As you can see in lots of these parts, the color is still very well preserved. And it's quite amazing to be there and take in all this sight. So up to you again, if you are really interested in history and that's a tomb that you really want to go and see for yourself, you're there, do it. That's what I would suggest. Now we're going to leave the West Bank and head over to the East Bank, the other side of the Nile. This next spot I'm going to take you to, one of my favorite spots actually, in terms of archaeological sites. This one is the Temple of Karnak. The reason I love this site, well, it's massive. There are a few reasons, but number one is that it's so huge and it's hard to really take in all its glory, I guess. And it has many smaller temples within it. Lots of them do have really nice reliefs and good preservations. Also has an obelisk, and this one area, the most picturesque, I guess you could say, is these jaw-droppingly huge columns that have been reconstructed. They're insanely big. I mean, you look at me, I look like this little raisin beside these columns. So it's pretty amazing. What I found super interesting were these massive quarries that were outside of the main temple complex areas. So all these chunks of stone are actually leftovers from the temple that need to be reconstructed and put into place. So when I read that and realized that, I was shocked. And then it gave me this huge appreciation for all the people that dedicate their lives to this work. I mean, obviously, I knew in my mind, it's a lot of effort to put this kind of stuff together, right? But I never really could visually see that. And so when I looked at these quarries and I looked at that, I thought, wow, I would never, But thankfully, there are people out there that do it, and I'm so happy they do, because it lets us really see what these places would have looked like thousands of years ago. So thank you to all that dedicate your lives to that work. You're awesome. Around the complex, you'll likely find some other locals trying to scam you in some way, so just be wary of that as you're going around. Here we're coming to another favorite spot of mine in Karnak, which is the gate that opens up to the avenue of the Sphinxes. Now this actually leads all the way from the Karnak temple all the way to Luxor temple on the other side of town. And the whole road, or avenue rather, is 2.7 kilometers long. So pretty significant, all the Sphinxes all along that way. Pretty cool. With that, folks, I am taking you to my last stop in Egypt. Thank you for listening thus far. This is actually an overnight desert tour that I did to the White Desert. If you have 2 days to spare, I would suggest this. It's a good break from the crazy city, and it's a lot different from the other things that you maybe have already seen in Egypt before. I arranged this tour through my hostel, Dahab Hostel. Super affordable. The tour guide was great, and I had an awesome time. So if you're interested, I'll leave the link below to the tour. From Cairo was a very long drive to the Abageyah Oasis. I know when we think oasis, we think it's going to be like some beautiful place, but realistically, oasis usually just means a town in the middle of the desert because there's not much else except for these little oases. Oasi? That's embarrassing. Anyways, from the oasis, we stopped first at the Black Desert. So this area consists of these volcano-shaped mountains that are covered mostly in basalt. Already at this point, I felt like I was somewhere in the wild. I really loved it. There was no one around. You just saw space and these mountains for a long distance. It was pretty breathtaking. After the Black Desert, we then stopped at the Aqaba Desert and saw what the locals refer to as Crystal Mountain. So here you can see a lot of quartz within the rock. A lot of areas are just sort of jammed packed with these crystals. So that's why it's called the Crystal Mountain. Around this area again is these sort of larger mountain sort of rolling hills. So again, a nice quiet space. From here we went towards where we set up camp in the White Desert. And there you'll see virtually millions of these peculiar shaped rocks that are made of a combination of white calcium, quartz crystals, or limestone. Because of this combination of rock, it basically appears snow white. So even compared to the sand below, this stuff is white, white, white. Paper white, snow white. Okay, which obviously gives it the name of the White Desert. A lot of the stones seem to look kind of mushroom shaped to me, but this one, as our tour guide pointed out, is clearly a rabbit. One of the coolest things we saw here was the fennec fox. Oh my goodness, look at this little guy. He is so cute. He actually first appeared at night. I think after we had finished our dinner, he came by. I think he was looking for scraps. But then he came by again in the morning, so I was able to get a nice video of him. I imagine he's probably super used to tourists considering how close he came and did not get scared. But anyway, either way, if he's used to the people camping or not, he's super cute. On our way out of the desert, we stopped at this beautiful valley. Unfortunately, I don't remember the name, and I accidentally did not save the location when I took the pictures. But I can tell you it was an awesome spot. Beautiful valley with these massive hills. Your tour guide may let you take the opportunity to do some sandboarding at a point. If that's something you want to do, you can let them know. As for that, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for my little tour, quick tour of Egypt and all the sites that I saw in that 1 week. A lot was packed in there. If you have any questions about any of the information in this video, please leave me a comment below. I'm happy to answer. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Bye for now.